Okay, we are streaming to YouTube. We are ready when you are.
Okay. I'll begin this work session of Seward City Council. This is a work session involving the harbor, and we have the harbor master here, I believe, to give a talk and then a discussion about the upland improvement. So I'll turn it over to administration.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as part of our ongoing presentations from department heads, we have Tony here tonight to give his department head overview, but then we decided it would be a great opportunity to pair it with the R&M presentation on the Harbor Master Building and South Uplands Improvement. So kind of twofer at this work session, so I'll just hand it off to Tony so he can give you his presentation.
Okay, and I'm going to warn everybody that, you know, we only have up to an hour and we'll quit a little early.
Tony's presentation is only 58 minutes and 45 seconds.
Just be aware of time constraint here.
5 to 8 minutes is more accurate.
Yeah.
And just like Kat said, the larger handout will be the second presentation. So. Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I would like to also extend a special welcome to our international guests who are just joining us this evening for this evening's presentation. When I first sat down to reflect on the harbor's role within the community and the direction I wanted to take for this presentation, my mind went in every direction. The simple, fun version is we are a floating community within our community. We provide all the amenities, including power, sewer, water, with miles of dock acting as our roadways. But this is much larger, and the Seward Harbor is more than a place for vessels to come and go. This is a living, breathing entity that drives our economy. It supports local jobs, attracts visitors, and not only connects us to other Alaskan communities, but the world. We may be limited within our current footprint for growth, but I encourage you to drive around the waterfront between here and SMIC and imagine the possibilities for expansion and future growth. Whatever the future holds for this great department, I know through the dedication and commitment of my amazing and talented staff, they will be able to keep it all afloat. Next, in my short but fulfilling slideshow presentation, I will bring to light the many amenities we have to offer and help the world understand why we are the preferred destination. So Seward has played an important role for over 100 years, and some of the many things that are great about our port is we're an ice-free deep water port, and we're connected by air, rail, and road. I like to always start off with an old picture of the past to sort of see where we were, and then where we've gone, and where we can maybe even go. I don't have a date on this picture, but you can see the original harbor in place up to the north on the east side there. If you move further south, you'll see the Standard Oil tank farm and then the dock on the south end of town there. And then Seward is starting to expand north. This is one of my favorite pictures, and I always include it in any chance I get. But this was taken in 1965, right after the earthquake and tsunami. And just in that short period of time, you can see the harbor is already in place, and they're working on the dock over at the port as well. And just look at the possibilities there for a minute of if you could go back in time. Maybe the harbor would be on the edge of the water. And then this is our current footprint within that basin. We've extended or expanded to the east a little bit, but it's a very efficient use of space, as you can see, with a little bit of room for growth off to the east side there, as we will attempt to maybe in future years. Within that footprint, there are 557 slips. 499 of those slips offer electricity. If you include the transient areas that offer power, that increases that number up to 552, and with a slip range of 23 feet to 100 feet, and able to accommodate vessels up to 150 feet and even a little bit larger. The basin itself is dredged to a -16 mean low water, and we have over 1,500 feet of comfortable linear moorage, or as we refer to as transient moorage. You could extend that out even by 50% if you include rafting off other vessels or double berthing, which is quite impressive. It's quite a number. And then it's home to one fish processing plant, Silverbait Seafoods. Just another view from the southeast corner facing northwest. Some of our future projects include our South Harbor Uplands development, an IDOT crane, boardwalk restoration, add additional power to transient floats, and potential Z-float expansion project of some sort. Moving east over to the Seward Marine Industrial Center, or SMIC. This is a photo from the construction of the synchro lift and is dated the mid-'80s, 1984. And it's quite we have a stack of photos, and it's pretty impressive what they did over there in the 80s. And again, if you could go back in time and just reconfigure that, it'd be an amazing opportunity. And here's the current footprint as of today. As you can see, the breakwater has been extended. Fisherman's float is put in place. The north dock, 4 and 5 feet of north dock. All of our upland storage and JAG is located there as well too. Some of the amenities within that facility, we have over 1,000 feet of linear moorage between North Dock and Fisherman's Float. North Dock measures in at just over 400 feet and is dredged to, along that wall only, is a minus 25 feet at mean low water, with the basin depth of being minus 21 throughout. On the edge of North Dock is also our 10-ton crane, where people can take a test and use that crane on their own time intervals, and then we bill them out for time used as well. Further north on North Dock is a fenced-in area with 10 acres of storage. It also houses our 330-ton travel lift, and then 25 acres of storage for those vessels in the city yard, and then JAGS operates our 5,000-ton synchro lift. Current ongoing SMIC projects, as of last month, after meeting with the Coast Guard, they have moved up the time frame for our FRC, the Frederick Land, and hope to release the RFP for that dock in late 2025. We are looking to open up additional city land for larger vessels, and also increase our services with power and water for those vessels on city property. We'll continue to remove old and abandoned vessels and work on a few new leases as well. This was a picture that was given to us by one of our users. Yes, if you look in, you can see the North Dock storage yard is stacked with connexes, equipment, construction materials to all head out on a barge to smaller communities out west. And that's been slowly picking up over the last 3-4 years. Some other industry in the area it's the home of JAG Industrial. Com North is located in the area. Shoreside Petroleum has a tank farm with headers and fuel capabilities at North Dock. Pacific Seafoods is moving into the area, and Avtec houses their fire training center. This is just a picture of one of the larger boats we were able to haul out on our 300-ton travel lift. Just kind of a fun picture to look at, see it balancing there. And the future of SMIC, just increase our cargo handling and capability for all Alaska-bound cargo. We'll continue to work forward with the JAG lease and rail extension, expansion of marine supported businesses, and maximize our moorage capabilities. Some of that we understand will change when the Coast Guard moves in, since we'll be losing about 150 feet of our dock over there We understand that, and we'll cross that bridge when they get in place. Any questions?
Thank you. Exciting stuff. Councilmember Wells was asking if that picture of 1965, if that was me on the bicycle. That's why we were laughing.
I swear it looked just like you.
Just full disclosure there. Any questions for Tony? Yeah, Councilmember Warner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor McClure. I was just wondering if you could give us a little bit more information on the rail extension in partnership with JAG. Could you?
Sure. Could we go back to that? Maybe to the SMIC, the newer picture? And then we can talk about where that is, but is everyone clear on where that extension is going? It's on the south end, over the east side of their gate, on the south end of their lot.
Is it, tell me which
Is that right there? So if you look and you see there, the tent, if you move south, they are going to take that basically vacant lot right behind going east. And their intent is to just do a rail extension for the Synchro lift, and that will allow them to secure longer-term government contracts, like the 2-year contracts with the Fairweather and vessels of that size and nature.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thanks, Tony. We're maybe transition to
Yeah.
the next.
Beautiful transition to the next presentation with
Thank you.
R&M. Thanks, Tony.
And then hopefully we'll get audience questions and participation all together at the end. That's my plan here, so we'll see how much time we have. So you guys can go ahead and get started.
Great. Thank you all so much for having us. We're thrilled to be supporting Tony and the City of Seward on yet another project. I'm Taryn Olsen-Yell. I'm a planner and the project manager overseeing this project. I'm joined by a team of engineers and architects, including Andy Weiss here with KPB, and then we did cost. So thank you so much, Andy, for setting that up for us. We have been working on how can the harbor continue to grow and develop? And I think, Tony, I wish I had seen your presentation earlier because you wrote the beautiful story with the 65 picture of how much change has happened since then and how quickly that can, it may not feel like fast development, but really the potential that has grown and expanded around the harbor over these years is really impressive. And so we're hoping that this will continue that story and continue to become more of a place with that South Uplands opportunity than it is right now. We have gone through a couple-month process similar to the fire station, where I think everyone has, for the most part, been a part of seeing our presentations a few times now. We've worked on a public safety needs assessment looking at the fire station and police station, and this is the next iteration of public facilities. And so we've gone through a really iterative concept design process. And Tony, or Andy, I will let you go ahead and talk a little bit about the design shred.
Sure. So we were down here in April, meeting with Tony and Jason. We spent a lot of time walking around the site. We spent a lot of time walking through the existing building, and then spent a little bit of time, kind of what we call on a game board, where we bring down the site on just a flat board, and then we bring down a bunch of pieces that represent some of the program elements for the project, the Harbor Master Building itself, any lease lots, parking, circulation. That's sort of what you see on that top row. And by the end of the day, we all sort of play this game, and by the end of the day, we sort of have a layout on the site that everybody feels pretty good with. And it's very interactive. And then that helps influence sort of the next step of putting pen to paper and start really drawing how the site can really be laid out. The images below are sort of the next scale of that sort of game, where we look at all the program elements that Tony and his team require in the building. And again, this isn't really architecture yet, it's sort of just playing with kind of Legos, right? Mm-hmm. And we kind of build the building both horizontally and vertically of where things need to go as far as how they're adjacent to each other and how they might want to stack on, say, a 2-story building. And so that's sort of the image below. And again, it's very interactive. And by the end of the day, we sort of have a plan to move forward. And it looks kind of messy and playful there, and then that starts to influence how we can put the building together and meet all the requirements of the Harbor Master building itself.
And really, we set out on 2 missions with this project. The first is to come up with a new concept for Harbor Master building. That's the Legos we were playing with. If you haven't seen Tony in his office, I'm going to volunteer Tony's availability to give you a tour. They're doing a remarkable job with the space that they have, but they are also doing a lot more than their job description. A lot of your staff are also being tour guides to people running into the lobby. There's one of the main bus stations is right outside your door, dealing with a lot of that, but also dealing with all the harbor business. Open doors, closed doors, round the clock. People are, tying up their boats at all hours of the night and are coming up to use facilities and services in the area. And so there's a lot of responsibility on that location. And quite honestly, it'd be great if they could see the harbor from their office. And that's currently not an option. There are a lot of good lease lots in the way, but that is something that we definitely wanted to correct with this, was giving the harbor staff an opportunity to first and foremost see the harbor. And to do that requires a new location. And at the moment, the South Uplands is undeveloped gravel. It's been that way since, I believe, 2008, when that fill all got put in. And as I said before, we want to continue bringing in the character of the development. So the first goal of playing the game was to come up with a new Harbor Master building that was going to meet the needs of the community and specifically the Harbor Master staff. But secondly, to try to take that Uplands gravel lot and make it a place. Placemaking is a huge part of it, while still providing that really core need of parking. We know that this is a really accessible, desirable place for people to park their RVs, their oversized boats. Ideally, they're not doing storage. Should be more than 24 hours. How long do people park there? Ish.
24.
So we wanted to continue that really big need by providing parking, but again, make it more of a place and make it clear that you can park and how to park. If anyone's been out there on a really busy day, you know that it's a little bit of a free-for-all. The first person who parks there gets to decide how everyone else is going to park that day, for better or worse, and that can be a real issue for our emergency response folks, especially when we've got a lot happening at the harbor, and if it's a busy day, being able to access those floats in the event of an emergency is a really big priority. So making sure that we're defining pedestrian and vehicular circulation on the site was really goal number 2. So.
And I think in part of that, this is such a great location visually for both people who live here and for people visiting, that we really wanted to kind of create a space where people can go. So there's the boardwalk now along the harbor. We really wanted to, but how can we extend that onto the South Uplands and really make it a destination for people to hang out and really kind of get all around that whole end of the South Uplands and then even back to the bike trail to the south. So we'll touch on that.
Yeah. I think the one other feature that I would be remiss not to mention is the Mariners Memorial that is already out there. And that already is, it serves a very specific purpose, but it's also a recreational destination. People love to go park their cars right next to it or go walk and, and appreciate the views there. The South Uplands really offers some of the best views of Resurrection Bay and of, the mountains all around. It's hard to find a bad view here in Seward, but this might be one of those that top the list. So from the game that we played, love that we call it the game, certain technicalities with that, we came up with a couple different versions of a site plan that we reviewed with Jason and Tony and tweaked a couple different times to really try to meet all of these goals. And so, again, that main one from a site planning perspective was making sure that our circulation patterns make sense and we're still providing as much opportunity for people to park as we can. We know that that's really important. We want to keep that going. Before I talk about the circulation, though, I want to point out the building locations that we have here. You see the Harbor Master office is the rectangle with the blue label on the north end of the South Uplands on the west side. So we're not changing anything in that existing paved parking lot. We're putting it up on the gravel portion. If you're familiar with the site, there's kind of like a 4 to 6 foot grade change. We're proposing to put the building right at the end of that grade change and actually use that grade change to our advantage. And you'll talk about that in a little bit. But this would provide Tony with a view of the harbor, which is great, right from the corner, and also be able to see boats coming in around the breakwater as well. So we thought that this location was pretty advantageous, still being close enough to the transient flow where it's accessible for people who are coming off of all of the floats to the north. We're trying to not make them walk all the way to the end of the South Uplands, so still maintaining accessibility there. And then the other big feature here is that other white box along the north side, which we have labeled as the lease area. So we're proposing to do something a little bit different than the rest of the harbor currently. So we have those small, if you're familiar, there's a bunch of small lease properties along the harbor. They're a little over 1,000 square foot each. Those are platted lease lots currently. We want to keep that same opportunity. We want to bring in more businesses. We want to activate the space. But we recognize that those small individual lease lots might be a little limiting for the types of businesses or lessees that may want to move to this area. And we don't know who those people are yet. We're not sure what kind of businesses might want to have that waterfront property, but we're pretty confident that would be a popular destination. Speaking with Jason quite a bit, we would love to see more year-round use at the harbor, have businesses whose doors are open for more than this couple of hours in the morning or a couple hours in the evening when they're bringing people, maybe to charters beginning at the end of the day. And so we want to intentionally leave this open. So we're not proposing individual lease lots, but a larger lease area that you can later, once you have some leases identified, we're talking about having some criteria, almost like a homeowners association, where we would have design guidance for what we want the look and feel to be like. So there's cohesion amongst leaseholders. But once we have a little bit better idea of the who and the what, we can actually plat lease lots just by document, so you don't have to go through the replat process every time. So this is kind of trying to set us up for success in case you have a bigger office or a restaurant or somebody who wants more space than just those small lease lots to negotiate that with the city and decide what this lease area could be. I think the other big feature about that, before I talk about parking and circulation, which I know everybody cares so much about, our civil engineers, bless their hearts, this was a masterpiece. But the existing bathrooms that are on site, we want to keep restrooms open to the public on this area. We know that those floats are really important for it being a recreational destination as well. We want to keep those available. We're just proposing to relocate those into the lease area in a logical place. Again, once we have more detail about what that looks like. So replacing that standalone building, incorporating it in consistent look and feel. Okay, parking circulation. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the red lines that you see on this site plan version, the site plan's not changing, we're just highlighting different features, is to show two-way vehicle circulation, so you can pass two cars pulling trailers here, and to show that there's sufficient turning movements for our fire trucks. Those were our big criteria. Can people pulling oversized trailers and fire trucks make all the turning movements that they would need to? And the answer is yes. So that's what the red is showing. Can I go to the next slide, please? Oh, that one. Thank you. I know, we have so many versions. We had one major, we decided that it was a constraint for cost savings and just for general, making sure that we're setting our expectations for site planning in a reasonable space. There's existing water and sewer lines and electrical lines already on the site. We didn't want to touch them. We know that if we have to relocate water mains and sewer lines, the cost only goes up, and so we kept those as basically our boundaries. We're not going to put a building over those lines, so that's what we're showing here. The other important thing I want to point out, so the larger spaces along the southern portion of the uplands and in the center, all of those those parking spaces are designed to be pulled through or back in. We did turning movements on all those. There's a couple that'll take a pro to park. We acknowledge that, but we didn't want to reduce that opportunity just because someone might be new at pulling a trailer like me this summer trying to figure it out. I wouldn't park at the end, but I know my husband would. They're all oversized stalls as well. So a typical parking stall is only 9 feet wide. Those are all designed to be 12 and a half. So we can fit our extra wide trailers, we can fit people with their large RVs. They should all be able to fit there. And then we are retaining parking that are standard stalls, so for personal vehicles, private vehicles, up along the lease area in the Harbor Master building to again try to encourage more of that year-round use. People who want to come hang out for a while, have a place to go. And one more picture for good measure. Over the aerial image, what this shows really well that may not pop as much on the other site plans is the pedestrian circulation. So from the north, like Andy mentioned before, we really wanted to bring that boardwalk concept down. We wanted to continue that. It's a huge draw. People love walking the boardwalk to the north. It's a really great place-making feature. You feel like you're on the harbor. We want to bring that and continue it down. We thought pretty hard about where people might want to cross and where we can hopefully facilitate safer crossings, and so there's a couple crosswalks hatched in there. But the part that personally I'm really excited about is the extension of the bike path from the south, going around the perimeter of the uplands so that you could walk the entirety of it on a dedicated pedestrian, non-motorized facility to ride your bike to continue that. If you're familiar now, there's the pedestrian bridge just south of here that bookends either of the campgrounds, but there's no physical wayfinding or visual wayfinding for that matter. If you're riding a bike coming from the south on the Waterfront Trail, it takes you towards 4th Avenue before you hit that pedestrian bridge, and unless you know that you need to cut through the gravel parking lot, that's the campground, you're not going to hit that destination and you're going to miss the South Uplands entirely. And so we really saw this as an opportunity to, hey, if we're going to make this a place, let's connect it. Let's connect it with pedestrian facilities, and so we're proposing to continue that up and through. And we did have conversations with the Parks Recreation Director about this as well, and saw, while not part of the Uplands project, but just saw an opportunity to look at that campground overall and say, could this be put to maybe a better community use? Can this be more of a recreational facility? Could it be a little bit more desirable for the residents who live in the apartment complex right there? So that's for a future conversation, but just bringing up the bike path through it and bringing people all the way around that's separate from our vehicular circulation is, yeah, hopefully going to be a much more enjoyable experience for everyone. Now that I talked too much, Andy, I'm sorry. Let's talk about the building.
So yeah, so what we, once as a team, we kind of sat around and really came up with the plan together, felt really good about it. We started to dive into sort of the technical piece of it, is really going through sort of the square footage that, after visiting the existing building and figuring out how much space they had and what they really needed, we came up with this proposed program, or space program for the building. And we worked back and forth with Tony and his team to kind of go through this and make sure we had all the spaces correctly identified, what they needed. We came up with a building that's about 7,500 square feet, give or take. And that felt like the right size for the current and for future. Without getting too big, it felt like the right size to everybody moving forward. So with that, jump to the next slide please. We created this, I'll call this like an adjacency diagram because it's not really architecture yet. But basically working with Tony to really figure out to make all the pieces in the right spot. Is everything located next to where they needed to be? Understanding how public used the building and how Tony's staff used the building and how we were separating stuff both horizontally and vertically to kind of keep secure spaces secure and public spaces public. One of the other pieces that we included in this program is kind of on the top, on level 1 on the top in the green, which is a conference room facility. That conference room was decided to be something that could be used as the harbor master, but also something that could be rented out for public use as well. It's right off the boardwalk, right off the harbor, kind of a fun connection to the space. And that's something that, the way we have it laid out, can be either during business hours or after hours as a concept. Looking a little more at the first floor, we have enough space for people to come in, do what they need to do with the team there. We have, moving back to the left, more workstations, plenty of storage, and then kind of moving back to the left even further is where we got into a lot of the stuff that Tony really needs right now, which is plenty of locker room space, plenty of space for a team to come in, shower, get changed after being outside. And then, all the way to the left, is a large maintenance shop. One of the things that Taryn mentioned before, when this building was located on the site, if you guys are all familiar with it, when you come in, you kind of go up about 6 feet to get up onto the south uplands right now, to ramp up. Well, we decided that we put the shop right at that end, so people can come in on the low side, and then we can create a much taller space without going up too tall. And this gave the opportunity to have tons of space coming in, tons of storage around the perimeter and even up high as needed. And that's really something that's lacking right now. And we had some fun walking through the existing facility, kind of finding all the stuff stored in little nooks and crannies all over the place, and blocking all the natural light and all the windows, and so we're like, okay, we gotta fix this. So then on the second floor, which is the kind of the graphic on the bottom, this is really the private space for the Harbor Master team. And one of the most important pieces of this was, well, there's a couple of things. One is that from upstairs, they can look down on what's going on the first floor, seeing who's coming in, what's going on, if they need to go down there to help out as needed. We also created sort of what you see, the blue that runs kind of up down on the sheet there, is a work area where everybody working in the space can see both north and south. So you can look up into the harbor itself, or south down into the bay, see boats coming in, see boats coming out. And then all the way on the right is that we created a roof deck, so you can go out again, monitor what's going on, see everything, have a really clear view of everything going on in the harbor. Much like when we do like a control tower at the airport, the rule is you have to be able to see every tail. The control tower at the airport. It's really no different here. Right? So from this vantage point, the team should be able to see everything going on in the harbor. You're up high enough, you're on the second floor, you should have a pretty clear vantage point of everything going on. And again, some of the other amenities on this space were a break room for everybody to hang out. There's stairs and elevator as needed, and then another conference room that Tony and his team can meet in as needed. Any questions so far? I'll jump to the next slide.
Questions? Go ahead.
Could we go back to the parking lot one?
Sure.
Chance? It's a two-part question. As one of the many people that spend a lot of time in the summer down there, all this landscaping here is taking away from needed parking and becomes a snowplow nightmare, which Tony knows the wind that howls through there in the winter is going to stack snow up. Why would we give up that many parking spots for landscape?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Serves a little bit of a dual purpose. One is to help us define that circulation. So especially that like small strip towards the west end, that one really is helping us define that drive aisle and providing that median. What type of landscape this is to be determined. We're just saying kind of green space, so whether that's like a raised median that would have to get plowed around, but that serves that purpose. The other ones adjacent to the south that are kind of triangular in shape, stormwater storage is a big consideration here. Because right now it's a gravel lot. Our plan at this point is to consider paving or potential permeable pavement, just to lower the overall maintenance costs, because grading and moving all that gravel around actually gets really expensive over time. And so if we're going towards a more impervious surface, there's going to be a lot of runoff on that big flat space. And so we need an area to catch it and guide it to. So it's serving a little bit of that function, but also really the circulation was first and foremost.
And I think, sorry, just to add one more thing. One of the issues that we heard a lot is that, and Taryn brought up before, is if you're the first one in, you're setting the tone for parking for the rest of everybody else. And we've all been there, right? We've all parked there, we've all seen it. And so the idea was to, how can we, I'll call it a starter.
Right.
So, yeah, I totally agree with what you're talking about, because, you know, if there's a plow's just gonna just blow right through it. So it's sort of like, well, but we need to come up with some way to start the pattern.
Okay.
It's a great question, and that's what.
Thanks. Anything else? Councilmember Warner?
Thank you, Madam Mayor McClure. I have a question. So on level 1, back on the floor plan, So the locker rooms with the showers, that is for harbor master staff. Will there be a public shower in this harbor master? We currently have one at our old, so, yeah.
Want me to take that one?
Yeah, please.
There will not be a public bathroom other than the small public bathroom for people visiting and to do business within the building, because we'll have that public bathroom further to the east. And the plan is to keep the public bathroom at our current location now, after this is in place, and then attack that area with an updated plan.
Okay, go ahead.
Cool, if you can jump to the next slide, please. So, what we did was we wanted to, as part of our deliverable, we really wanted to kind of at least give a feel of what this project was. And this is just a very, 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 very high level concept massing of what the project could look like. The idea is to create, something with lots of natural light, good views of the harbor, something that can fit into the environment, much like we looked at for fire, is sort of maybe we're setting a tone for civic buildings in Seward. And that's one of the other stuff we had here as well. So we took some of the shapes or forms that we did on fire and translated them over here. But again, trying to, big windows to kind of frame views for Tony and his team. Again, kind of trying to set the garage element a little low in that transition, which you kind of see right in the middle of the screen, and creating sort of some secure parking zones for the harbor master staff that could be a little bit behind landscape and not in the main public zone. And then, if you kind of jump to the next one, please. And then on the boardwalk side, creating a building that had a lot of natural light getting into both the space on the second floor, creating this really cool rooftop deck for the harbor master team to be able to see everything that's going on. And then on the first floor, creating transparency into the lobby as well as transparency into that shared public conference room space. And again, this is very high level, and that's sort of the next step that we can go. Jump into the next slide, please. So as we started digging into this with the team a bit, we brought this big board down and we were kind of playing with different thought starters of looks and feels of projects. The images on the top are a couple that sort of jump to the high level that people liked. And a lot of this had to do with spaces that could be activated in all seasons, spaces that are very public-facing, that could be integrated with whether it's boardwalks or other harbors themselves. Even the opportunity, like the one on the left, which is a retail establishment, but really the first floor of this facility really is a retail establishment. Right? It has to be in front, it has to be very accessible, very clear signage. So that was sort of an important piece of it, is that you want it to be welcoming and warm, and people to know, here's where I go to deal with stuff. So that's sort of some of those key features that you see on the listing on the side there. And then the other piece that really started to float up was how is this whole boardwalk concept and the bike trail that surrounds the whole South Outlets. And that was a really important piece that we wanted to focus on. So the image on the bottom right is an idea of how do you create this boardwalk or bike path that goes around the whole thing, and we integrate what we'll call like stadium seating or idea that kind of goes down almost to the water. I mean, right now, you go out there, a couple of weeks ago, I was down here, everybody's fishing, climbing down on the rocks. Maybe we look at creating zones for that, safer, but also people like to watch boats. And so now we try to create these zones with very specific views where people can come down, get some food from some of the lease lots, and be able to enjoy the waterfront, either looking north towards the harbor or south towards the bay. So that was sort of that idea on that bottom right there.
We have a question, Councilmember Wells.
This is actually a question that I think Councilmember Finch wants to ask, just hasn't got there yet. handicap accessible fishing.
Yes, Jason was mentioning that
There,
earlier.
that's it right there, right?
Well, that's one of many we should put in,
Yeah.
but
And I do, this might be a good time just to also, while we're on fishing, is that we have, I've talked over with Parks and Rec and going on that other feature where you saw the pathway going down to the bridge down there. Mel's gonna be working on their Parks and Rec master plan and after that, with that, developing that area to have handicap access, to make it more kind of, a community area, versus kind of like parking, camping, like collage right now that it is. And it's pretty easy just to be able to take that sidewalk as it winds down there and have big pads that are further down so people don't have to walk on rocks. But that will be, we talked about integrating it here, but I'm like, no, actually, that's actually Parks and Rec, and we need to kind of separate that out from this right here, but we do have this type of access here, so we will be doing both.
That's a great question. So, I'm glad.
Mr. Fish is definitely gonna ask.
Okay. Any questions so far before I jump to the other stuff?
I think we're okay.
Okay, so, our task order with our whole team was to basically come up with the package that's in front of you, which is this very high level, call it a concept package, that basically takes the project to show that, one, it's viable, how it can really work, create a program, look at all the needs for the facility, and get it to a point where now we need to present what you see on the screen now is sort of what it takes to get to shovel-ready project. So Jason and the team asked us to put together design fees for the project. We broke it down into 4, call it deliverables or milestones. 35% schematic design, 65% design development, skip number 3%. And then 100% construction documents, which is basically a permit-ready, shovel-ready project. One of the things like we talked about when I was down here in February on fire is potentially looking even at an alternate delivery method. We're seeing with tariffs and everything going on in the world that we're finding a lot of projects going what's called an alternate delivery process, where we bring a contractor on early in design, not bid. I'm not sure what sewage procurement process is, but it's something to think about. What that does is that it alleviates what we'll call like a bid day surprise on projects. And where it's an advantage to you is that at 35, 65, and even other periodic points, the contractor is pricing the project. So we have a really good feel of how much it's going to cost as we're designing. And if, at some point, you say, okay, this is what's called a guaranteed upfront price, and the contractor, you and the contractor agree to it, that's the price. No surprise. Everybody knows up front what's going on. And then it's the design team and the contractor's responsibility to make sure we stay in that number. And there's no like, oh, we forgot this, or what about this, it's all there. So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind moving forward on any project, really. Let me jump back to number 3. As part of this, and Taryn touched on it, we have this lease area as part of that South Uplands bar. And the idea with that is that as a team working with Jason and Tony, we create a language for what could be developed on that site. So as people sign up for leases, if they want something this big or this big or this big, the language that you say, okay, you can do that, but it's got to sort of fit this mold. And so at the end of the day, the whole development on that South Uplands has the same look and feel across the whole project. So the building, the colors, the palette, the landscape, anything that's going on sort of fits the mold that we all agree on. Some people might not like that they can't put their big sign or do whatever you want, but in the long run, it really makes for a more cohesive project. And so that was sort of something, number 3, we sort of pulled out as a separate little project that, as a group, we all thought was something that we should consider for this project.
It also protects you a little bit from a look and feel, community character standpoint if your leaseholders end up being shorter than anticipated. If you end up having somebody who, may be committed to an extensive lease, builds the building, and then something happens, they can't occupy it anymore. At least you're not left with, a very specific building that was built for that sole purpose that's now not there to be filled again by that engaged business. So a little bit of contingency planning in that as well. If anyone is super into land use and zoning, it's kind of like a mini zoning.
I'm just going to warn you, it's 6:45 and we're going to want to end within
Yep.
10 minutes.
Okay, I'll go to the uncomfortable stuff really quick.
It's our last slide. Thank you for the time.
So what the team asked us to do is just to put together a very high-level project cost. And when I mean project cost, that's everything. So that's all the design fees, all the permitting, all the FF&E, everything down to the chairs, any other sort of contingencies. And this is sort of where we landed. We took a little bit of a conservative lag at this because we didn't have a cost estimator on the project yet. So we used some of the numbers that we had looked at for both the police department and fire department as a baseline. Seemed like a good starting point. And use those to create this budget for the project. Yeah, so after that, any questions?
I did want to make one more thing that was just another piece that we're working on with this that was involved. I don't know if you saw, I wanted to do it, but we actually put a parking kiosk involved in this building as well. And so Parks and Rec will have their own little office in there, so that way they can help out with parking in the area, because it just seems like it's a really great spot to have it, so, yeah.
Thanks. Sorry. I forgot.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, so that's sort of where we're at. Any questions?
Questions from council? Thank you. We've got a couple minutes if anyone out there wants to comment or ask a question.
Could you read the bottom line number? Okay, we can't see it.
Sure.
Your total project cost,
Go ahead, read it.
$13,949,252, just under.
Say it.
Just under 14 million.
Right.
And I did have one question. There's electrical utility through there. Is that part of this project, or would that be dealt with it beforehand, or what?
We know where it is and we're proposing not to relocate it, so we're gonna work with it where it is. Are you talking about expanding that, or?
No, I'm talking about solving the problem. It's been a problem for development for over years.
So we're going to develop around it and utilize the current existing lines rather than building and moving them as a cost saving.
Thanks, Bruce. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead. If you give your name too, just so we can hear.
Yeah, Mike Taylor,
Okay,
live within city limits.
right.
I had a question, actually I had a couple. With the harbor master's office moving to the new location, will there be any exploration of maybe expanding the amenities of the old office, like bigger showers, maybe a laundry area for the visiting, small vessels that...
That is the end goal, is to increase that footprint. More showers, more bathrooms, maybe potential site for people to gather and wait for a bus, a covered bus stop, if you will. And change that whole look and feel to a safer passenger flow and better experience for our visitors and locals alike in that area. It's a little scary at 6 o'clock. I think we can all agree on
Yeah,
that.
it is. Real quick, you've got another question?
Yeah, my other question was, I noticed on that picture that new construction area is going to be immediately north of what we all call the culvert, the public fishing area. Is that going to have any effect on that area?
No, in fact, we're trying to improve that area, so, yeah.
I got one more.
Okay, Bruce.
Will the final design be juried? I mean, you got this modern-esque thing there, it could be Tudor, Mediterranean, whatever. How will the final design be decided?
We would bring it back to council for final approval before we do any building, so you can get a
We'll make
whack
sure
at
you're
it.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, Thank-
IP design would be good.
Thank you. Any last,
I would say one thing too that's discussed that we got shown in the picture, but I wanted to make note of that. One of the things that we're looking at is having something that does have a flat roof because for an evacuation area down in the harbor area, should there ever be a tsunami, it's something that they are building into certain buildings. And so that's just something that's why we're possibly looking at that flat roof area.
To go onto the roof during
Right.
tsunami.
Tsunami, yeah. So
Okay.
it's a local gathering area, but they are building those in different places that in tsunami zones.
okay,
Yeah.
anything else? Well, this was a lot of information from Tony and from you guys, and thank you. I think this is all on YouTube, so people can, watch if they weren't on the house.
And we can attach the presentation as well on YouTube
Thank
so that
you.
you can see the details up close.
That'd be perfect, then you can see all this stuff. All right, with that, at 6:50, I will close the work session and we will meet again at 7 minutes.